But let's cross to Perth, Western Australia now and catch up with the Western Australian Liberal Opposition Leader, Zach Kirkup. Thanks for joining us, Zach. I want to ask you about your green energy policy and why you're aiming to shut down all coal-fired power in Western Australia by 2025. Why would you subject West Australians to that expense and that risk?
Because the reality is that that's where we need to be going. It's only state government-owned coal-fired power stations that would be phasing out by 2025. So some of the language that's been used more recently, it's not all, it's just the ones that are owned by the state government. And it's part of our move towards making sure we unlock new fuel sources here in Western Australia, transition towards the likes of hydrogen in the medium term. It's a great opportunity for Western Australia to continue to become more energy independent and more self-reliant. And it's a good step to take. It's a necessary step to take here in WA.
Even if you agreed this was a good place to end up at, to do it in the next 4 years is described as being completely wrong-headed even by the Federal Energy Minister. I mean, you have quite capable, functioning coal-fired power stations. You're a massive state with a low carbon footprint per capita or per square kilometre. This is not helping the planet at all. Why would you do this?
Well, the reality is that we'd still be using the likes of gas, which are an important part of our energy mix here in Western Australia already, but we'd be transitioning to make sure that we expand our solar and renewable energy and battery array that we want to help build here in Western Australia. It's important because it's going to unlock tens of thousands of jobs. It's cheaper to provide power to consumers here in Western Australia.
Yeah, we keep hearing this, but no one's delivered this. We keep hearing from Green left politicians that renewable energy is cheaper and it creates jobs. That just hasn't happened anywhere in the world yet. And the issue, especially with Western Australia, is where are you going to store your energy? I mean, you don't have an interconnector into Victoria or New South Wales that states like South Australia have. We saw what happened when that fell down, by the way. But where's your backup going to be? Where are you going to store solar and wind energy?
Well, that's why it's going to create tens of thousands of jobs, because we want to make sure we establish a large mega battery array here in WA. As you pointed out, we've got the capacity, the land to do it, but that's why as well that gas still remains an important part of the mix.
It's got to be gas.
The reality
your only backup will be gas. You can't have a battery to store enough power for Perth. You have to have 1,000 times bigger than the biggest battery ever constructed to power Perth for a day.
Well, that's exactly why it's an ambitious project. Exactly why we need to diversify our energy mix. There are going to be people like yourself who think that it can't be done, but I'm conscious of the fact that when here in Western Australia, when we set ourselves a target, we get it done. Doesn't matter what those over east say we can't do in WA. I'm confident that our state has the capacity to do it. It'll mean that we unlock many tens of thousands of jobs and it'll deliver cheaper power bills to people. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. We'll eat humble pie when that happens. Look, you're facing the polls on March the 13th. Wouldn't it be better to, instead of trying to out-green left the Labor Party on energy policy and match them on, the hard border mentality of Perth, wouldn't it be better to be sensible and pragmatic on energy and sensible and pragmatic on state borders?
It's sensible and pragmatic to have a policy that brings back manufacturing to Western Australia, which this will do through downstream processing. It's sensible and pragmatic
how will you bring back manufacturing with more expensive...
tens of thousands of jobs here in Western Australia. It's sensible and pragmatic to drive down the cost of power bills. This is core Liberal Party policy. What we're saying is that the state government shouldn't own any coal-fired power stations. How is that against Liberal Party philosophy? That's exactly where we should be. We think it's important to move towards this as an energy source that helps power our state, and they have the capacity to deliver that in WA. I think it's a good and ambitious, bold plan for the future of WA. And if we don't want to do it over east, that's fine. But I'm confident we can do it here in Western Australia.
Yeah, well, your manufacturing won't go too well unless it has reliable and affordable energy, and no one's been able to do that with the sort of plan that you've talked about today. What about borders, briefly? Surely Mark McGowan has been far too strict on borders, far too paranoid, and needs to keep opening borders to the rest of the country?
No, I stand together with the Chief Health Officer here in making sure we keep West Australians safe. I get a lot of criticism from those over east who say that somehow the Liberal Party should try and wean itself off the Chief Health Officer. I stand shoulder to shoulder with the Chief Health Officer and all West Australians in keeping our state safe.
Zach Kirkup, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Zach Kirkup there, who's running up against Mark McGowan on March the 13th, pretty much running the same arguments as Mark McGowan. There you heard it. I don't think we're going to see Western Australia closing down all its power stations in 2025 and suddenly entering a green job nirvana. We've heard it all before, haven't we?